What past failure are you still replaying in your head? What past failure are you still replaying in your head? This is a heavy one. As I mentioned, I've gone through a lot of transitions, particularly this year. And if you're going through transitions, you're not going to be perfect at all. Uh, the fa- Transition just essentially is another word for chaos because you don't have your grounding yet. A lot of our perfectionist tendencies tend to come up or get amplified when we're going through a new area that we're actually quiet as kept, we're actually not supposed to know. We're not supposed to go through a transition perfectly. We're not supposed to have this tough conversation perfectly. We're not supposed to get into this new role perfectly. We're not supposed to do that. Now, if that's our criteria, then yes, we're going to be sorely disappointed. So when we're talking about perfectionism, we're really talking about idealism. In an ideal world, in this vacuum, I would operate in this way. If I already knew that was going to happen, I would operate this way. Well, of course you would have, as any sane person would, but you didn't know. You didn't have all the answers. Listen, if you had all the answers, it wouldn't be a transition because it wouldn't be anything new. Therefore, it's literally logically impossible for you to have all the answers. Because if you're doing the same old stuff, then it's not a transition. It's not anything new about it. So when we dwell on what past failure are you still replaying in your mind, when we're dwelling on those past failures, it's often our inability to recognize our own idealism, to realize I'm beating myself up over a situation that I had very little control over. I'm self-flagellating, which is hitting yourself with a whip or whatever. Like I'm hurting myself, proverbially, not literally. If you're literally doing that, please get a therapist. But if you're doing that psychologically to yourself, if you're hurting yourself, if it's often based on these high expectations, these, I would argue, unrealistic expectations that you're going to show up a certain way that was near to impossible to show up as. I have stuff from my childhood where I'm like, oh, I could have handled that better. I'm like, I was 4. Like, doesn't make any sense. I did, and likely you did, whatever seemed reasonable based on the resources and the knowledge you had at the time. You did whatever seemed reasonable based on the resources and knowledge you had at the time. Perfectionism and trying to make things perfect plays a game with us. It's some ethereal, liminal, abstract idea that we're supposed to live up to. But that's not why we're here. That's why we get into the guilt versus shame. Guilt is saying I should have showed up a certain way. Why didn't I show up that way? Shame is saying I didn't show up that way, and everybody knows it. Now I can't show my face. In either case, then that's when the compensation starts. And we start trying to overcompensate for so-called past failures. I remember interacting with someone. I'll I'll keep the names out of it. I remember interacting with someone and them saying, "Well, I don't feel guilt or shame because I'm over that, and it's a shame that other people do." And myself and other people that interact with this person all kind of looked at each other and like, "Oh, you just revealed." I used to play poker. We're just from Atlantic City. You just revealed your cards, right? It's like playing Uno with all the cards upside down or right side up. It's like, oh, you really feel a level of guilt or shame to the level where you can't even admit that you feel those things. That's some deep work. Not from a place of judgment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if we feel this guilt or this shame or both, You can feel both around a past failure or sometime we weren't able to live up to the expectations we had in our head or that we felt like other people had for us. Then overcompensation starts. I did a recent episode around summertime. It's all in the links about accepting your shadow and understanding your shadow side. It gets into that. Dr. Brene Brown's work gets into that. Whatever we don't reveal, we can't really heal. And we don't have to reveal it to other people, but we do need to work on our stuff. And if we don't work on our stuff, I guess you could say our stuff will work on us. And I remember having this moment with this person and with other people that were there. And it was a clear moment. We all kind of looked at each other. It's like, and whatever they weren't dealing with was crystal clear to us. But they were in such a sense of denial and probably over shame over whatever they experienced. That stuff was unprocessed. And who knows how else that might have been coming out in this person's life. When you know better, you do better. Be gentle with yourself. Exactly. From the great, another doctor, Dr. Maya Angelou. Thank you for the comment. I haven't heard that one in a long time. So, what past failure are you still replaying in your mind? When you're about to launch that product or that service, when you're about to get on that stage and say something, if you're a speaker like myself, when you're about to seal that deal with that new customer, when you're about to address a community that you've been waiting to serve for so long, when you're about to apply for that grant or that scholarship or that funding, you're talking to VCs or what have you. And that little thing says, no, you're not. That's not you. What's replaying in your head? Often there's some type of pain, some type of wound that's there that needs to be addressed. And hopefully that example I gave, which I hope they're doing better, but it sounds like with the person that I was talking with, they had a lot of work to do. And hopefully they got to it. We all have work to do. Sometimes it's just more obvious to other people. If we want to go deeper into this, we cannot have this episode without my guy, Dan Nan Han. Let me move my fat finger so you can see it. There we go. No mud, no lotus. Rest in peace. He passed away about 2 years ago. Fantastic monk, um, Buddhist monk. I forget where he's based. I want to say in Nepal, but he moved around quite a bit. Actually, Martin Luther King Jr., that one, well before I was born, came to this guy, San Nan Han, to get insight into nonviolent revolution. Mm. He was Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor. This guy was on some deep stuff. I think when he passed away, he was probably approaching 100. He had been around for a while. Fantastic book. The basic premise and the idea of this is that the lotus flower, which if you're familiar with yoga practices or if you've seen someone meditate, I think I had a recent episode on solitude, and I was in the lotus position. It's basically when you have like your legs crossed, crisscross applesauce, as they say at my kids' school, and then your hands out, in a particular position. That's called the lotus position because you're opening yourself up to whatever wisdom might come from the insights from the universe. We won't get too deep into it, but that's the lotus position. That's based on the lotus flower. The lotus flower, which I think is really common in like Thailand and kind of the Southeast Asia, including like Nepal, that actually comes from mud. No mud, no lotus. One of the most beautiful flowers in the world. It's usually like pink and it might be a little lavender. It's like beautiful. These pastel colors. It comes from the mud. Comes from the mud. They got it from the mud, as modern hip hoppers say today. Got it straight from the mud. Those toughest challenges that we have, they often end up creating the most beautiful results if we're resilient enough and if we're disciplined enough to get through those pains and those challenges. And as we talk about in this episode, to get over our perfectionism and to realize that the mud is part of the process. Who deals with mud and doesn't get dirty? who raises a person from when they come out of the womb or later, for those folks that adopt or have step families, raises them until the parent is no longer there, when the parent's time to check out, and doesn't make mistakes or doesn't learn things. Who founds a company? I've founded two of them. Who's founded a company and not made mistakes, not lost sleep over a misjudgment or miscalculation, not sunk a company or nearly sunk a company because they were off base, end up losing a customer because they said the wrong thing or they addressed something differently. Then next time you show up better. When you know better, you do better. Again, thanks for the quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. I was a big fan of his before he passed. And then when he passed, I did a special episode 190. So, like, man, like 200 episodes ago. Best Thich Nhat Hanh quote you need to hear right now. We're going through turbulent times. When I did this video, guess what? 210 episodes later, still going through turbulent times. As I say in many of my books and sometimes on this show, this is something that we need right now in these turbulent times. And it's always turbulent times. There's always something new going on. That's what makes the world go round. One of my favorite songs right now, which I grew up with, but I'm really getting into now, is the Stylistics, People Make the World Go Round, which, if you didn't hear the original one back in the early 70s, you would have heard the many remakes from Angela Bofield, rest in peace to her, as well as I think it's a guy named Mark Dorsey, who actually did it for the Crooklyn soundtrack back in the 90s. I'm getting music nerd on you guys. But it's a fantastic song where it's like, this is kind of how it works. There's ups, there's downs, there's challenges. What are we going to do with this mud when you're beating yourself up over a past failure? And it's okay to call it a failure if you feel that way. Okay, you had a past failure. Does that prevent you from moving forward? Does that close off all the doors? Was there nothing learned from that failure? And if all those things you know, are not true, or you have new opportunities, you learn something from it. Was it really a failure? Something to think about. You guys don't have to jump in the comments with whatever past failure you're feeling, unless you feel like doing it, because I know it's a lot, and some of us have very heavy ones. I know I certainly have some. You know, first attempt at learning, exactly. Learning how to embrace both aspects as necessary in order to create the magic. Exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking about so many songs. Back to the song thing, that talk about how you have to accept the mud to get the lotus. You have to get the wheat and the chaff. Every rose has its thorn. Shout out to Poison. There's so many, right? Shout out to my 80s babies. But there's so many different things that represent that. There's a reason why in poetry and in song we hear that so often. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts too. And thank you for the comment about fail as well. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV, Wednesdays, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free. If you wanted to do any sponsorship of this show or the newsletter, and I'm available on multiple platforms, be sure to check out the link below. I do a lot of my sponsorship through passionfruit.com. It's spelled F-R-O-O-T. They're a great partner. All the links are below. Or you can reach out to me directly, and we'll see what's up. But I love partnering with folks that really want to connect with non-traditional entrepreneurs, side hustlers, solopreneurs, and people who, particularly in this day and age, want to make an impact on the world. And like I said, it's always time to make an impact in the world. To quote Seth Godin, what to do when it's your turn, and it's always your turn. You can get the complete Bring Your Worth collection. It's available now. It's book 27, and there's 7 books in this one, including some compilations. I think you guys would appreciate it. Thank you for the love and support. If you want to listen to the audiobook, you can get it on your favorite platform, as well as listening to it here at BringYourWorth.tv, and fresh and new on Spotify. There's some limited episodes on there. I think we're going to focus on the live episodes. So if you prefer Spotify, head on over there. Check it out. Add me to your Spotify playlist. And also, almost all, maybe all at this point, of my audiobooks are also available on Spotify. So thank you, Spotify, for the partnership.